Hey y'all.
Hi.
Y'all look so good. I think I said this last week too, but you always look so good.
But look at you.
Thank you.
You're looking
I was
very-
fishing for that. No,
You?
me. You know, just drinking out of my Sunny mug because it's the only part of Sunny I'm fucking with. This week. And,
I was so mad at the show when I woke up yesterday morning that I was like, I'm not drinking out of this GH mug. But then I drank out of it this morning.
it's just a
I
good
had
mug.
every intention of drinking out of the mug and eating a donut, but I just didn't get ready in time. So I will do that later.
Did you get a donut?
I got on my bike and rode 6 miles to Donut Savant to get donuts for my birthday.
Yes, birthday donut.
Yeah, so
Birthday coming up.
yeah, birthday is next week, next Saturday. So I usually highlight Aquarian lifestyle. Week, I usually wear purple, but this sweatshirt didn't come in purple, so I'm gonna have to do red. But yeah, it's Age of the Aquarian and get with it, y'all. So yeah, so I have donuts waiting for me. If anyone is in Oakland, Donut Savant has the best donuts. Not like regular donuts. So if you get the best donuts in Oakland, that's somewhere else. But these are cronuts. These are specialty boutique donuts. And so I rode my bike to get one so I can deserve it. And I deserve it anyway, but I wrote it for the exercise and now I can't wait to have one.
6 miles on a bike, you're putting us to shame. I'm like, damn, I gotta work out after this. So we are episode 21.
21. We should be drinking.
I'm having sparkling water.
No, we should be some whiskey or something.
And I do have next to me, because I just keep out of frame, a nice bottle of Prosecco.
Yeah, I like some fruit drinks like Maxie and and her mom. I'm a Luke person. I drink whiskey or something bourbon straight up. So
I'm an equal opportunity. Whiskey, frou-frou, whatever.
I like a whiskey on the side of a frou-frou.
I just want everything. I'm greedy.
There you go. I love it. So this week on GH, so much to talk about and also so little. Like it's
a little and yet so much.
So much and so little. So this week, obviously the cabin trip, I know that we framed it up last week, like, okay, we're going to do this deep dive because we're pretty sure we're going to be talking about the cabin for the next 2 weeks. And talk about the cabin we will. And so we're going to switch it up a little bit this week. We're going to just do like some kind of top line recap. Tonya's going to give like performances of the week. And then we're going to just deep dive right into the cabin because there's so much to talk about. My notes are so ignorant, so we'll see what happens. You ready for this recap?
So ready. I don't remember what happened this week because it traumatized me so much.
I barely remember. Okay. Ned and Olivia tell Leo they'll be renewing their vows and they give his permission for Ned to adopt him.
Mm-hmm.
Ned invites Austin, who declines. And Austin and Britt talk, and Austin tells Britt about his brother who's on this autism spectrum, which was a really good conversation, I thought. Mm-hmm. Maxie stops by Chase's and BLQ's place, aka Jax's old place, to see Bailey, aka Wheezy. She is upset to see the bond that BLQ has with her daughter. Maxie, Austin, Felicia, and Anna go to the spot where Maxie gave birth to jar her memory. When alone, Austin remembers hearing Maxie's voice. That mixed with the conversation he had with Britt about a possible baby swap to keep the baby away from Peter, he has some questions. And to avoid answering those questions, Maxie kisses Austin. Thanks. Valentine and Victor figure out the truth about Wheezy via sonogram. Victor tells Peter, and Victor also kidnaps Valentine again. Sunny continues to spiral. He shows up at the Savoy and demands that Curtis let him buy out the club for a date night with Carly. When Curtis refuses, Drew shows up to de-escalate, and Sunny basically tells him he should have died instead of Jason, and that they were never friends. Ooh. Hat Daddy looks on. It is clear that he has a beef with him, some Sunny Corinthos. Sunny leaves with Nina, who takes him home. He is clearly in the middle of a manic episode, so she stays overnight. You know her feelings. She convinces him to go to the doctor, but when she leaves, he does too, without seeing anyone who can adjust or refill his prescription. He does run into Brando, and they have a conversation. Anyway, Carly has a run-in with both Ava and Nina at the yoga studio. She argues with Ava about Avery, and Nina tries to approach her about Sunny, but she doesn't get to the point, and so Carly does not give her a chance to speak her piece. Curtis fills in Stella on Marshall, saying that he was in witness protection when he was gone. Stella seems very skeptical about this. So we know that is not necessarily what Stella knows. Marshall has another conversation with Epiphany about her being a doctor, and when she says she was wrong to question his doctor about his medication, he looks away, leading us to believe that there's more to his health than we know. Harmony brings a gift to Alexis at her new office at the Invader. Alexis tells her they probably can't be friends. Sam tells Christina that she put Harmony on notice for the both of them. Christina calls her messy and says that she has not made up her mind on the Harm-Lexus friendship, but that Sam should not speak for her. Laura convinces Martin to drop Peter as a client. And finally, the teens go to the cabin, and we will deep dive into that later. So I know that we're gonna have a lot to talk about, so we're just gonna go right into Tonya, who are the performers of the week?
Well, honestly, y'all, no performance this week really just jumped out at me and was just like, bravo, this should be your Emmy reel type thing. This week, it was a little, it was just kind of okay for me this week, but I do just want to give some shout outs for some, good acting, even if it wasn't like hurrah for me. Obviously Johnny Wacker's still doing a really good job with Brando, his grieving. I think the conversation on his end was pretty good. I think it was weird that he thinks Sonny's the best male role model in his life. I don't think so. I guess that's a difference of opinion. I think, can you guys hear me? Yeah, and then so there's that. I do, again, the performance wasn't like awe-inspiring for me, but my other person would be Maurice Bernard, because I mean obviously he does manic mood swings very well. He was super mean. I was just jaw dropped how mean he was to Drew. And then just going through the mood swings and stuff like that. I mean, that's it's good acting. It's not, I don't think the storyline is the best, but good acting. Also Eden McCoy, I guess I liked her performance the best because she finally gave it to Spencer, yelled at him, and that moment again, the story is just not and yeah.
I think that I really like what you pointed out, which is that people can give really good performances, but if the story is not there, it's really hard to get into the performance.
Right.
Sandra has been like, because Sandra, you're like a Billy Miller fan, so it's been hard for you to have Ryan Lavery as Drew. But right. I know you had some feelings about Sunny and Drew.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, I felt it was like that whole scene. I was just like, are you kidding me, dude? Why are you? Oh, but yeah, please tell us how you're feeling.
Well, I stood up immediately. Like literally stood up as soon as Sunny started going off on Drew Lavery. And I did not sit down until he had cleared the area.
Did you want to smack him?
I did. I was like, I know this isn't my Drew, but you're not talking to any Drew this way.
Right?
Any of them. Even my least favorite Drew Lavery. He's still Drew.
Yeah.
And then I was mad because I was like, why am I defending Drew Lavery? You know, y'all know I'm confused all the time about how I feel about Drew. So I guess hats off to Maurice for making me feel all those things about a character who I feel conflicted about anyway.
Right.
I will say out of the cabin performers, I agree about like it was another example, and we'll talk about this more shortly, of like I think everyone's performance was good. And their material was not. But for me, the standouts were actually like Sydney first, because she had to like work with such intense material. And I think she just really, and also like she had to play so many different beats this week and in so many different ways. So I appreciated that. And Nicholas always does like a fabulous job. And Avery did a great job of making me fucking hate Esme. So
yeah.
You know, her performance is always great, regardless of how I feel about the character. But yeah.
So let's just get into it. Let's not waste this time. Let's just get into this cabin trip. I have lots of notes, but where do we want to start? Because there is a lot. Yeah, where do you want to start?
The drugging. Okay, so I actually looked up what the drug that Esme got. It's an opioid. And at first, I didn't realize that Esme had made hot toddies, but mixing alcohol with an opioid is crazy dangerous. And the idea, not that the rest of them knew that Trina was also drugged, but I feel like GH treatment of that was really subpar and really irresponsible, because they needed to show how dangerous that mixed combination is, and they didn't really do it. I mean, it did as far as, you know, the rest of the teens saw, it did look like Trina may have merely been drunk, but I think the reaction that should have had with the mix of whiskey and an opioid should have been a lot more dramatic and physical. And I don't know if GH did not write it that way, and it was probably hard for Sydney to like Sydney should have had some sort of maybe a heart attack or something like that, because especially if she's never drunk like that and having that drug, it should have been a lot more serious in the way that the writers made it out. And so I'm really upset at that, because it was very irresponsible for GH to put those two drugs together and not have it be a more serious physical thing than it was. And so that disappointed me. And the fact that, yeah, Jocelyn was like, let me in, and then just went away when Trina was just like, no, just leave me alone. No, they should have really looked after her and went and made sure that she was alive and all of that. And because it was, even if it wasn't her first drinking experience, apparently she did have a reaction and she wasn't feeling well. And yet they were like, oh, she'll just sleep it. No, no. So yeah. And maybe I'm just being one of those, you know, overly concerned. I just felt
no, you're not.
Yeah, I was just like, that was too dangerous, and they were just way too blasé about it, and the writers were way too blasé about it, and GH was way too blasé about it. And they didn't have even a message saying, you know, kids, you shouldn't mix opioid with alcohol at the end, or no number
or anybody.
or number to call or anything. Like, there was just no acknowledgement of the seriousness of what Esme did.
Yes.
And they know how to do that, because right now, like last season of Grey's Anatomy and Station 19 was like set in the pandemic.
Right.
And this season, like, even though we're still in the midst of a pandemic, it's set like post-pandemic, right? Like, they're not, so they made a big deal about like wearing masks and all that last season. They didn't do it this season. So literally every single episode that has aired of Grey's and Station 19 has a placard about this being a post-pandemic world.
Right.
Like, we recognize this is not this is still happening, but this is
Yeah.
how we're like setting this, like, at the very least they should have done that. But to really show the seriousness of this, they should have had a PSA with Sydney and Avery talking about how serious this is.
Exactly. And they didn't do that. That's very irresponsible.
Yeah, it's like, why go through the trouble of doing the zoom in to show us exactly what drug Esme was giving Trina, and like how high of a dosage it was, and to show us like, oh, she put 2 doses in the cup. Like, there was so much work that went into establishing what the drug was, and then for it to, like, it just also felt unclear. I feel like I've seen a lot of people like doing research into tramadol and then like trying to like piece together like what's going to happen, or like, is Trina okay, or like what kind of dose she had. So and what's sad is that I think that folks have put a lot more thoughtfulness into it than the writers ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Why bother? Like, you could have not told us what the drug was. It could have been a mystery. Like, there's so many ways to have played that. I mean,
yeah,
so many different ways they could have played everything.
Every single thing. I will say, so when I watched it, I was like on a high, like the Sprina high from earlier that week, because we had like the really great scenes with them at Kelly's. Like Sydney and Nicholas like really leaned into like their chemistry, and they were like allowed to do that. And so I was like, okay. I knew the cabin was gonna kind of be a mess. I'd heard the actors like do some interviews about the cabin, and they were like, oh yeah, it's gonna be this huge thing. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that they were going to like isolate, humiliate, and drug the Black girl. Like, I just never thought it. We've joked, I'm not joking, but being kind of serious, like, they need to get Trina some Black friends, right? Like, we've all said that. But like, there's this like almost trust that is put into like Cameron and Jocelyn and Spencer, because we know they care about Trina. So at the end of it, I was like, this is some get out shit. Like, this is very like, and I couldn't identify why on Thursday I was so upset about it. Like, I just felt it. Like, I was like very like in it. Like, it was really hard to separate that this was like happening to like a character on screen and not something bigger than that. And then I remembered, oh shit, like, yeah, there is that case of the woman who went to the adult sleepover, and she was the only Black person, and they drug, and like, she died, and they never really investigated it. So her name was Tamla Horsford. I'm not gonna go into the case just because it's a lot, but like, people should look it up. But I was like, oh, like, it speaks to like how we talk about how you actually can't write this colorblind. So like, don't come to me and say, well, this is soapy. We've been watching Hallmark bullshit for the last 2 years, right? Like, that Nina and Sonny haven't even like kissed since he's been home. Brooklyn and Chase haven't like, this has not been like written as a soap. It's been written as some other shit. And so you actually don't get to tell me that you're making it soapy on the back of a Black girl.
Mm-hmm.
That you have like isolated and humiliated. I just, like my reaction to it was like, oh, and I don't think they like purposely were like, oh yeah, I saw this case, let's like replicate it on screen, right? Like I don't think that's what they did. I think they were tone deaf. I think that they like didn't care, and they had and yeah, they just didn't put any care into the character of Trina and why people like her and why it's important to write for her in a way that's different than this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, there were so many like part of the experience of like looking at this storyline is like zooming out, like you were talking about the beginning of the week, like we were on a high. The Sprina scenes were like both unexpected and so good. I think it was actually some of their best work. And it definitely had me, I didn't know exactly like what my expectations were around the cabin. Like I knew what I wanted, but what did I actually expect? And I was like, oh, ooh, they're really laying on this Sprina very thick. Oh, like maybe there is going to be like a little alone scene at the cabin, and maybe that's what sets Esme off. Like their chemistry, and even into the next day when they were at the cabin and everyone was together and they just like kept gravitating towards each other, that I was like, oh, I'm getting some movement in our story. And I knew like I've had concerns about the drugs, right? Like a lot of folks have had a lot of theories about what was going to happen with the drugging. Like, was she going to drug Trina and Cam and try to make it seem like something happened between them? And I remember being like, oh, I really don't want that. And in fact, like, I don't really trust them to do anything around like consent and drugging and like all this stuff. And so I think I was really going in with this assumption like Esme is going to try to drug Trina and she's going to fail. Or at the very most, she's going to drug Trina and someone else. So lo and behold, when we actually get to the scene where they're playing the drinking game and Trina actually, like, she is the only person who's targeted and she actually starts drinking it, I was like, oh, my soul is leaving my body. Like I started like that, I feel like started, and I think other people have described this, like I felt like I was dissociating. Like I was like, is this really happening? Like I can't believe they're actually, I have such little faith in the writers, but like even I did not think y'all would just really make the wrong decision at every turn when you could have made even just a slightly better one. And so, and then it went from like, okay, this is happening. I felt like a little bit of excitement about Joss standing up for Trina and like immediately running to check on her. And I was like, okay, good on you, Joss. But I still felt super triggered at the end of it, but was like, I'm going to withhold my wrath until I see what happens on Friday. Like, until I see them checking on Trina again, until I see how she's doing, because like, again, I know that she's a fictional character, but also being left wondering, like, Trina just drank this narcotics. We don't know how much she's had. Even just waiting the night felt hard. But then when we come back on Friday, my stance was like, oh man, I can't wait till someone checks on Trina. And then it was like, damn, y'all, quit talking and somebody check on Trina. And then I was like, we haven't seen Sydney. Like, I guess they're not going to check on Trina. And then I'm like, oh my God, Chaos is having sex? What the hell is happening? Like, I really, I don't even know, like I couldn't even take in what else was happening in the episode because it actually felt like a waking nightmare.
And like Spencer was almost there, right? So when Jocelyn was giving him the third degree, like, what are you thinking about what I'm saying? He's like, how is Trina? I expected him, if they didn't know, for him to actually go back himself and be like, Trina, hey, can you let us know you're okay? Because we're concerned. That didn't happen. Now I'm thinking they're writing it as a, he has a little bit of concern about Trina, but he's still so much under Esme's web that he can't. But still, as a friend, even if you're, why wouldn't all of you stop and be like, hey, let's go back and check on her? And that didn't happen.
Yeah, like you're gonna take Esme's word that she's sleeping?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I look at it in two different ways, right? Like, so I look at it as the actors and like the characters are the characters, right? And then I also look at it as the actors and like what is fair to them and what honors the work that they put in. So you have Sydney putting in this performance of being drugged, and then the storyline being taken, like her whole agency, the whole storyline being taken away from her. So the whole thing was not like her being drugged and the soapiness, I guess that people say it is, was like used to remove her from the storyline and prop up white characters. So here we are concerned about her. Here you have isolated, humiliated, and drugged her, put her in danger. And now the storyline isn't even about her. They're talking about her in another room without even checking in on her. So like that's like really fucked up for her character. And then I'm sure that Eden and William have put in a lot of work to like what ended up being their sex scene, right? Like it was probably it's definitely their first time on screen together, like as actors. This is their first love scene, period. And so to like have that overarching with the audience, like what the fuck is going on here, is not fair to them as performers. It's not fair to them as like people who are trying to like carry a couple. And so it just like speaks to this like way that writers just do not care about like how audiences are feeling and are like really taking away. I would feel that way regardless. Like if Josh had gotten drugged and Spencer and Trina went to hook up, I'd be like, yo, this is wild. But especially with the optics, especially with how messed up it was, every part of it was just like Trina didn't drink enough for her to be behaving that way. Right? Like she had like a cup. Y'all all had a cup.
It wasn't even a full cup. She didn't even
it wasn't even a full cup.
Yeah.
So how were you not tracking how she was acting? I mean, it's just like the whole thing was fucked up. You are bringing your friend who's the fifth wheel. If I go somewhere with my homegirl and she's the fifth wheel and I got my man and the dude she likes and her boyfriend are there, or his girlfriend are there, I'm gonna sit with my friend because me and my man, like, we're gonna see each other tonight. So I want to make sure that my friend feels included. So we're not going to be snuggled by the fire. I'm going to be sitting with my friend and making sure that she like is not feeling awkward because the guy she likes is here. So it was just like every single beat. And I don't know actually what the resolution is. Maybe this will all come up on Monday or come up in a rupture in their friendship. But right now you sent the audience into the weekend on something that should have been like an important moment for Jocelyn and Cameron. That should have been like a really like powerful moment for Sydney, and everybody is like, what the fuck did I just watch? And I also want to say that like I've seen a lot of, well, Sydney didn't seem upset or she whatever. Sydney is an 18-year-old girl. It is actually not her responsibility to like carry the legacy of institutionalized racism within soaps and within the country and within the world. That's actually not her responsibility. So Sydney might not know the history of Keisha Ward. I sure do. Keisha might not know that when Lainey Winters disappeared, I text my homegirl Shannon, like, where the fuck is Lainey at? Right? Like, Sydney might not know the history of Valerie Spencer just up and disappearing, right? Sydney might not know when Ward was dating Ethan and then he wasn't there anymore and didn't have any use for her, like that character up and disappeared. So it's a lot to ask an 18-year-old girl to carry all of that and then to stand up against her employer. And I just feel like that narrative has to stop. Like it's not Sydney's responsibility to stand up for storylines.
No, that's also like, how many stories do we know about like quote unquote like difficult actresses?
Yeah.
Right.
Out against their stories and then never working again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of the action that happened at the cabin, as you named, was like about Trina. And so much of it happened when she was not in the room. And even when she was in the room, she was so out of it. They're sitting there like fighting about whether or not about her feelings without Joss speaking for her and not checking in with her actually. And in these moments where Joss is like yelling about how Trina feels, Trina's sitting there like this, like looking completely out of it, looking like we've never seen her look before. And to be honest, even though like, oh my God, Spencer, my child, I will say like, I'm upset with him, and he's actually like, he was tracking how Trina was doing more than anyone was in the room. He was looking at her. He was being like, hey guys, maybe let's get back to the game. And Joss kept going in. And I hate to hate on Joss. I love Joss and Trina's friendships. And I think one of the things that was so upsetting to me was like the one thing that I didn't want. I kept saying it wasn't Sprina fighting. It wasn't like any of these things. It was, I just really don't want a Joss Trina rupture. I was like, that would be really hard on my heart with all these other things going on. And I was really, really disappointed in Jocelyn. Really, like more than in the other characters, even though I'm very disappointed in all the white characters on the teen scene right now. It was hard for me. I think in part because we do know like how much Joss does care for Trina. It's like one of my favorite qualities about her. So to see that take a back seat to her beef with this other white girl both felt out of character, but also like a familiar dynamic for people of color and their white friends who like do really care. And also this shit happens.
Yep. It's, I'm thinking about, so I watched The Bachelor, or I used to, and The Bachelorette, that whole series. And I remember a couple years ago, like, so the criticism was always like, The Bachelor is really white, right? Like that, like, even when they have people of color, like they don't go far. They're just there for ornamental use, whatever. And I didn't really watch The Bachelor for Diversity. I watched it to like see crazy ass dates and like watch people fall in love in one day because, I'm ruled by Venus. And so I recognize that in myself. And falling in love very quickly. And so like, that's why I watched The Bachelor. And so when they cast Rachel Lindsay, so she was a bachelor like one of the contestants in a season. And then before she was even eliminated, they were like, okay, we're about to like capture this Black woman who is like, everybody loves her. We're going to let people know that she didn't win, but she's going to be the Bachelorette. And I was nervous because I was like, I don't actually get to enjoy this in the same way because I'm also tracking how they're treating Rachel, right? I want to make sure that Rachel is taken care of. And so what happens? They cast her, and then there's like racist white dudes in her season, and then there's like white men who are like forcing the Black men in her season to like purposely like poking at them, and the dynamic is that they're aggressive. Not that like the men have always kind of been like against each other and like had fighty moments, but that these particular Black men are aggressive. And I see, and it was the same, I think, nervousness I had when Trina became like more of a main character. I was like, how are they going to handle her story? Because anything that happens bad to her, people are going to say, oh, it's just soaps. And it's not that we don't want soapy shit to happen to her. We've been wishing the Cassadines would kidnap her since the beginning. Like, it is not that we don't want Sydney to have like a front burner storyline. It is not that we think that she should just be perfect. One of the things that we've identified is like, we loved how messy her plan was to expose Spencer as a stalker. It's not that, but it's to understand that She is not every other white character that you've dealt with. And so I remember how they treated Georgie to prop up Lulu. And so if they will treat Frisco and Felicia's kid this way, Frisco and Felicia's white kid this way, I know damn well how you'll treat Taggart's kid. And like, so that's why like this like Trina's aunties thing kind of really rose up, because people were like, we want to protect this character because we know what you do to Black characters. We have watched how you sideline them. And these are not new conversations. So like if you go on like our Twitter mentions are fucking wasteland, people be like, why are you making it about race? Why all of a sudden are you so upset? It's not all of a sudden. It is that now we have a medium to talk about it. Because I guarantee you, aunties was on cordless phones in the 90s talking about the bullshit.
Yep. Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like they were talking about it. I guarantee you that like when they turned Justice into like a mob lawyer and killed him, people who have been sticking with the show forever was like, what the hell is this? And they called somebody and said something, and maybe they sent a text because we just started texting then, right? Like these things are not new, but now we have a medium where people of color can actually speak up and have the access to speak up, because I can add Frank Valenti the same way anybody else can. There is no like access barriers to that. These are the same conversations that now get elevated to another level. And Black fans and fans of color deserve to like be reflected in the stories that we watch. Many of us have like grown up watching these shows, so it's not like, oh, you can stop watching. Sure, I could, but like I got memories of my grandma, I got memories of my auntie. Like I've been rocking with this. I'm a fan, like you're a fan. I get to voice that I want a story in the same way you get to voice that you want a story. And so it's just it is wildly irresponsible and fucked up.
I think this is reflective of the times that we are living in now. I mean, larger than just in the soap opera world. A lot of people are mad at Black America right now because we are elevating our concerns and we're getting a lot of traction and people are paying attention to us, and it's making racist white people upset. They don't like being called Karen. They don't like having to be responsible for saying racist shit in public and actually getting fired for it. They don't like being not being able to get away with their sketchy behaviors of the past, because now we're going to call you out on it. And people are paying attention to us and are supporting us in our opinions. And I think it's almost as if the soap opera world has kind of felt like they can kind of skate through and still do kind of the same things that they've done. But you can't get away with it now because, like you said, we have access. We have a voice and people are listening to us. And so they need to start paying attention to that too. And especially, I mean, the white fans too. You can't be mad. Don't be mad at us for being open and honest about how we feel about what's happening with these storylines, because they affect us. And so, you know, just as much as your opinions are valued, our opinions are valued too. And you need to hear it. So, you know, extra hurt feelings, Karen.
Karen. But let me also address something else, because I got something to say about this. Okay, let me talk about this. So, what I am not here for is people building platforms off of Black outrage. So I peeped a little blogger, and I won't at them because why would you? But all of a sudden, this happens, and he pops up with a little video that keeps getting shared at my feed. I'm like, who the hell is that? I ain't never seen this person before in my life. And I be super online. Since the pandemic, I be online, okay? So I ain't never seen you before. Not in none of the hashtags, not in none of the chats. I ain't never seen you talk about race, nothing. But all of a sudden, because Trina was trending, not just in soaps, but in the United States, oh, now you jumping on the bandwagon, right? So here you are regurgitating talking points that you heard from Black people. And this is tale as old as time. It happens in soap work. It happens in our work every day. I've seen some of my ideas in the real world, like, oh, is this, because I said this. And this is what that shit was. And it just felt very Tim Wise of you when you could have uplifted a Black woman or Black women or Black gender non-conforming folks, and you didn't. You chose to make a video so that you can get YouTube views. There are people like Tara at Port Misery, Brittany Martinez, Ashley Jones, who is constantly not only holding space, but holding spaces for these conversations. Dominic Witcher, Jay Berry, these are just people, to name a few, who have nuanced perspective, because this is our lives and livelihoods as well, instead of you taking our shit and watering it down.
Yep.
Because you didn't feel it. It's very Elvis Presley of you.
Justin Timberlake.
It's very Justin Timberlake of you, because I just watched that Janet documentary, and I'm still mad. I don't give a fuck if Janet says she's forgiven him. That's fine. I haven't. And I haven't forgiven this little blogger either, but at least Justin can sing. Okay? I don't like that shit. And I'm not giving kudos. And we got to stop giving kudos to white people for repeating our shit and not even saying it as well as we saying it. Stop it. I'm not with it. And so then the same person, because I was already hot at him yesterday.
Uh-oh.
But then today, I saw he had nerve and audacity to try to call out a Black blogger and try to say that Black blogger isn't doing enough for race at GH. I'm sorry. And like talking about how when they did like the Women of Port Charles photo shoot, they didn't do enough to like call out like the race issue. I'm gonna tell you what I never need. I never need a white man to speak for me. Ever. There is no, if I ever said I need a white man to speak for me, come get me. Because somebody took over my body. I would never in my life need a white man to speak for me. Ryan is the person, and Source Ryan is like a person I go to because like he's like a historian on the timeline. When he comes into like spaces, like he gives a lot of like context. And so what I think about for him is like the difference between like us and him, which is like, and in like in our organizing too, like we don't have a connection to General Hospital. That's not our livelihood. It's not like if I say some wild shit, like I could say, fuck Marcus Coloma and his Scientology shit, and I'm not concerned that somebody's gonna come back and not book with us or that I can't get in the room.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ryan's job. And so when he provides context for us, because he actually knows, I don't have to agree with everything he says. As a matter of fact, it's very few people who I do. I don't know, we don't always agree. But we can respect that and not try to call somebody out, especially this person who I ain't never seen in the club anyway.
No.
How dare you? How you hating from outside of the club? You can't even get in. Stop it. Who are you? I ain't never seen you. Never seen you in these Twitter streets. Never seen you talking about race. Then you go say, it just reminds me of the Black woman who got da-da-da-da. You know, I almost guarantee you it never doesn't remind you of the Black woman. What it reminded you of is when you check that GH hashtag and somebody said that shit. And then you were like, oh.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of here. Nobody needs you. Uplift people who already have been having these conversations. You know, I very rarely uplift men.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to talk about diversity in soaps, go to Donald. Go to Donald Peoples. He's been talking about this shit. He's been literally writing the book on it.
Yep.
But because you knew you can get some outrage clicks, it's very Sean King of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you knew you can get some outrage clicks. Now you want to come over here. Shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
In the words of my fave character from Succession, fuck off.
Fuck off.
That's what I got for him.
When I saw that video, I was like, I don't even need to like listen to what this white person's saying. I already know that he's saying something that a bunch of Black women already said. Because also, this little white blogger is not unique. Because there's always some little white blogger for every news cycle outside of soap operas. I mean, you've already named so many of them. Like so many dynamics where it's just like, oh, let me ride this outrage wave. Like, let me get clicks, let me get follows, let me get whatever like attention that I'm seeking. And then where's this person going to be next week?
Mm-hmm.
What's their analysis? Why are they doing this?
Where they'll be next week is checking the GH tag and stealing from another Black woman, trying to figure out what they should say. That's what they'll be doing. Anyway.
They'll hop on the day's outrage train.
Yeah, probably. I just couldn't believe that he thought to fix his fingers to type at a Black person about race. It didn't show up for you, because one thing about them comments, they are not on your side. So I suggest you. That's my favorite, reaction video.
Mm-hmm.
That was my performance of that reaction video. Thank you.
Dramatic interpretation. I loved it.
Call me theater school. Whew, I was so mad. Okay, I have more, but go ahead, please. Somebody besides me.
Again, it's just always the audacity of white men. I mean, they have it down. It's interesting how white people can get to define what is racist, what isn't racist. It can tell you how you should feel about racism, how you should act when it comes to racism, and feel entitled enough to say something, to share an opinion. That is old. Mm-hmm. And it's astounding. Mm-hmm. I have no other words. It's crazy. And we deal with it all the time, in politics, in life, and entertainment. Mm-hmm. Y'all need to really, I'm sorry, white people, but y'all need to really look at yourselves. Look in the mirror.
Don't apologize to them.
Right. I just really think about what you're saying. But they don't feel the need to do that.
So speaking of some foolishness, did y'all see? So one of the things that kind of garnered some outrage in connection to this is that the GH account the very next day, or Saturday, tweeted a picture of Laura Wright, Carly, and Eden McCoy Joss, tagged the actresses in the picture, and was like, Esme learned the hard way that that Joss is Carly's daughter. I'm like, did she learn the hard way? Because this feels like her plan went off without a hitch.
Right.
Yes. And it also was like, y'all drugged. I cannot get over it. You isolated, humiliated, and drugged Trina. And then the thing that you thought to do was to uplift Joss and Carly? Why would you do that to these actresses?
Because they don't watch the show? I'm convinced. Also, I felt like I learned the hard way that Joss is Carly's daughter. I feel betrayed. Personally, I would just feel like, I've been defending you. I've been saying she's not mini Carly. But she was all the worst parts of Carly on this trip. Yes. Popping off with no real plan, thinking that she's on top and that she showed that person because she yelled at her. But to what end? Your best friend is humiliated and crying in the bathroom. And your one of your oldest childhood friends, who I agreed with a lot of what she said to Spencer, no lies detected. But is that when he left, I've never seen him look so dejected.
He looked clown dog. He's like,
I'm sorry, guys. Also, his I'm sorry, guys, also felt directed to Sprina fans and not to Joss and him.
Right.
It was Nicholas being I didn't want to do this.
I'm sorry, y'all.
I'm sorry. I wanted to check on Trina, but they wouldn't let me.
But he was yelling. He was I'm gonna get our bags and I'm gonna check on Trina.
He was I'm gonna emphasize very loudly that I wanted to, because I need you all to know that that's what I actually wanted to do. But he looked so downtrodden, and he closes the door and Joss is sitting there so proud of herself. And I'm like, but what did you do, girl?
It was the most Carly shit I've ever seen.
It was very white.
It was like Sarah Brown Carly shit. You know what I'm saying?
It was messy and not in a good way. I mean, there were aspects again of it that were enjoyable, but when I look at her behavior at the cabin, from like knowing what I know from Friday on and knowing what she does after that, I'm like, girl, did somebody body snatch you? Like, this is not the Jocelyn John Jax that I know and love. And I know that there are some people who feel very like, who are anti-Carly, and I'm like, Joss has always been like that, da 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 da. And I mean, I guess that's your opinion and you're entitled to it. I don't feel this way. This feels very out of character, which is why I find myself stuck on feeling upset with her more than anyone else. I mean, Cam, I knew.
Simple Cameron.
Simple Cam, not sweet, only simple. Like, my expectations, I didn't know what would happen on the trip, but my expectations about how I would feel about people were the following. Like, I thought I would feel always loving Trina, always. I thought I would be loving Trina. I would be feeling probably conflicted about Spencer. Like, I knew that from the get-go. I'm gonna feel conflicted about him at the end of this trip. That I want to be mad as hell at Esme. I did know that I was probably going to be like, fuck Cam forever by the end of it. I just knew. And then Jocelyn, I just assumed that I would be feeling maybe sympathy for her for whatever happens with Cam, or I would be feeling proud of her for sticking up for Trina. But lo and behold, I find myself.
Wait a second. You're not a Chaos fan?
No. Thank you for noticing. I could never.
I'm sorry. That was. There's someone who like constantly comes on our Twitter and is like, you must not be Chaos fans. And every time I say it to Sandra, that's the response.
I could never.
That whole scene, I was just like, is it over yet?
For so many reasons.
I'm like, Tonya, I don't want to see it.
We literally did that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And like, you know, here's the thing. I wouldn't have been excited about seeing that under any circumstances. They are just not my couple. And I made that abundantly clear. But that the writers really thought, let's hook them with the Sprina at the beginning. And then, you know what? Let's just like humiliate and drug Trina. And let's just put Spencer through the ringer. And then I know what we'll do. Let's go ahead and still have Joss and Cam have sex. They'll love it.
It'll be super romantic too.
This is what people want.
And then we'll add another bit of drama by having Esme film it. And so we've got plot for next week, y'all.
And here's the thing. Joke's on them. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares that this is happening to Joss and Cam because everyone's still trying to wrap their mind around that they would do this to Trina.
Yes.
And like, honestly, I was just like, I saw that it was happening and I was like, well, shit, sucks to be you. But how's Trina?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Spencer. Don't talk to me about anything else. How's Trina?
Because, you know, I love William Lipton. I think he's very adorable and very sweet. I never had any real use for Elizabeth Weber and Xander Smith's kid. I said it. I've never had any use for him. And I only cared about him because I liked William and because of his relationship to Trina. And even when him and Trina, like when there was no Katrina and they broke up, I was always like, I want to make sure that we keep a Trina and Cam friendship. And thus far, they kind of did, right? Like they were like, you know, he was like hyped her up at the gallery and, you know, whatever. I also remember not like last year, year before, when they tried to do like a policing storyline when Cam like pointed the gun at Jordan. And Trina was like pissed and like sat with him and was like, here is what this meant for me. I have been with you and Joss before as the only Black person. It's the only time they've ever brought up race for them. I've been with you and Joss. The police pulled us over. You didn't comply. You and Josh just laughed about it and talked about it. And I was shaking in the back. That is what she said.
Yep.
And so Cameron Weber, I know that Laura has grandmothered you better than this.
Mm-hmm.
You should have been tracking how Trina was feeling. You've also known, see, like Josh didn't know how Esme had been trying to play this with them like having feelings for each other and all of that. This was actually not surprising to Cameron. Mm-hmm. Like, he was like, I don't understand where this is coming from. Yes, you do. She's been planting it for months. Jocelyn didn't know where this was coming from because she hasn't really planted that for her.
Mm-hmm. Can we also talk about...
Gotta hear Xander's kid.
Can we talk about Cameron's revisionist history?
You already know I have something. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, I was actually teeing it up for you.
Because I was mad.
I know you're prepared with the timeline.
Oh yeah, my timeline. So okay, so first of all, let me say this. I do have a timeline. And I didn't put it up because it was like a little bit in defense of Josh. And after Friday, I was like, my sister done burnt too many bridges and I can't help her now. But I am really noticing, and this happens all the time, and I've said this before, the desire for Spencer to Trina only takes us so far.
Mm-hmm.
You actually don't get to continue to tell me that she is desired without showing it. Mm-hmm. And so what we had in this revisionist history of Xander's kid was that he sat here and said, oh, we weren't that much. So you basically have had two white boys who clearly have had real feelings for her, deny her for their white girlfriends. And I know that y'all are trying to write colorblind stories, but those optics are really fucked up. Because what we know is that this happens time and time again. That white men will desire Black women and show desire for Black women, but when it comes time to be in public, we're not good enough for them. Mm-hmm. And that's what it felt like, especially in the context of everything else that happened. Mm-hmm. You know, like you can sometimes kind of like let that be nagging in the back of your mind, but be like, okay, we can keep it going. Like we don't have to like dwell on that. But when something as egregious as what they just did happens, that's when it comes back and you're like, fuck, that all of that happened. Right. So it was completely unacceptable. But there was a lot of conversation about Trina and Joss and like Joss stealing boys from Trina. So I like have started doing a timeline. Let me see if I can pull it up to my drafts. Again, it's in drafts because I didn't finish it because Jocelyn, you're on your own.
We all have so many takes from Thursday that I'm glad I sat on until after Friday.
Right. So 2018, Joss was dating Oscar and Cam liked her. Mm-hmm. When Oscar found out he was dying, he asked Cam to step in and so he could push Joss away. Right. Joss had a crush on Cam, but when she found out Oscar was dying, they got back together. Mm-hmm. Same year, Joss, Oscar, Cam, and Trina went to Niagara Falls. When Joss was getting time alone with Oscar, Trina was like, oh, me and Cam will go away. And Cam was like, oh, Trina, I don't really like you. And Trina was like, boy, please. I don't like you either. I was trying to get them alone time. And that is like really what cemented the Cam and Trina friendship. Mm-hmm. When Oscar died, Cam like clearly still liked Joss, but he was trying to give trying to give them space. In comes Dev. Dev comes in the picture. Joss is keeping his identity. Eventually they tell Trina and Cam. Joss likes Dev, kisses him. He likes her, but he pushes her away for whatever reason. 2020. Cam and Trina are kidnapped, and Trina watches her dad die, right? They're traumatized, they grow close, they share a kiss. Cam is confused and talks to Franco about liking Trina. So this whole I didn't really like her. Yes, you did. Because he had liked Joss. Yep. And then he was like, oh shit, I like Trina. What do I do? And he talked to Franco about it.
Yeah.
He also then so Cam is going to ask Trina to prom, but it's interrupted by Joss. Like she didn't do it on purpose. And they decide to go to prom as a foursome. Cam and Trina kiss again, and Trina is basically like, nah, I'm good. That's what happened. It was not a mutual decision. Trina was like, I don't know about all that. Dev tells Brando he has a crush on Joss, while they have Trina unknowingly having a crush on Dev. Dev turns Trina down. Joss and Cam kiss at a party. Dev sees it and he starts that diary bullshit. Where he does the fake diary thing that's like, Cam was an awful kisser. And but Trina was removed from that situation. When Dev told her no, she was like, okay, I'm good. Dev was gonna tell Cam what happened. And then that's when he dies in the mob violence at the bar, the Floating Red.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Dev. One of the most interesting teams. We miss you. And it submits the three of them as friends. This shit happens with Jason, and I guess it was supposed to be chaos buildup, but nobody recognized it as chaos buildup. It was tension between them. And then she finds out about the diary after the Jason thing subsides that coincides with graduation. And so Joss and Cam don't have their first kiss until the day that Trina meets Spencer as Victor, which she doesn't even know him. He does the thing in the art gallery. She meets him when he says he's a bar back. And at Trina's party is when Cam and Joss have their first kiss. So I said that I put out all that timeline to say that there was not some overlap between them. When they say whatever, sisters before misters, Joss didn't really violate. I am the arbiter of girl code. Let me tell you, I still don't fuck with Kelly Taylor from 90210 for what she did to Brenda Walsh today, right now. Fuck Kelly. And so I'm telling you that that's not what happened. And I'm also telling Cam, Trina told you no. She was like, oh, this kiss was bad. No, thank you.
Yes,
go be with Joss.
And he was low key offended by it. He was like, "Oh, you just are done, but you really?" And she was like, "You can just stay crushing on me forever, but I'm done."
Exactly.
So you doth protest too much, Cameron Stephen Weber. Yes, we're
Xander's kid.
Full names. I know all y'all white kids' full names. Okay.
I was there when you were born.
I brought you into this world and I can take you out. Especially you, Cameron. Cameron, Joss, you have a lot of work to do. Spencer, we'll talk about you later. We'll talk about I don't know.
Yeah. And self-writing is hard. And so I think that what I feel we have been super fair on the writers. Even when we offer critiques, we're this is a simple thing that you could have dropped in. Because we're always I understand where you were trying to go from point A to point B, but here's how you could have done it better, or here's how you could have respected history, here's how you could have done other things. And so just the idea that nobody checked on Trina. And people were like, well, they're 18 and 18-year-olds know how to check on their friends.
Yes.
Period. You absolutely know how to check on your friend. If my friend gets drunk, I'm putting eyes on you before you go to bed. And if Esme, who I know don't like you, says that you're sick or sleep, I'm gonna be like, okay, that means I can go into the room then. And I'm going to make sure you're on your side. I'm going to put some water next to your bedside. We know how to take care of each other when we're drunk. This was bad writing. And it was bad writing to make Joss and Cam bad friends in service of moving forward a story that nobody wanted to see. Let's just call it what it is. Let's not pretend like that's not what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I was a very messy young adult, and I was frequently drunk. And I was also frequently mixing substances. don't recommend it, but I was doing it. And let me tell you, there was no amount of like me being inebriated or me being young that ever made me cut out on my friends like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to check on, not only am I going to put eyes on you, I'm going to repeatedly put eyes on you.
Right.
Especially, I mean, if you've been acting strange, if you've been upset particularly about a situation that has to do with me, even if it's to be like, you know what, we don't have to talk, but what I am going to do is lay eyes on you. I'm going to give you some water. I'm going to get some food in your belly. Like, honestly, I used to do that shit when I was blacked out.
Yep.
Like, people would tell me, hey, thank you yesterday for taking care of me. And I'd be like, I don't remember that, but I'm glad I did it. Like, there's just no excuse.
And you do that if you're real friends.
Yes.
Right? If you're supposedly best friends.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that kind of, I don't think, protection when I was young, when I was 18. I didn't really experience that until I was an adult. And I'm not an experienced drinker. I didn't drink. I didn't do a lot of drugs or anything. But when I did start, I had friends who were like, okay, they would cut me off. After one, because I'm a really light drinker. They would say, that's enough for you. And they would keep an eye on me and they would take me home and make sure I was safe. But when I was in high school, I didn't have that. So part of me was not surprised by what happened, because it was what I experienced as the only Black girl in my school. And so I didn't have the friends that would take care of me like that. So it's almost really a true story.
Yeah.
So, but it's really sad that it has to be that way. But it's almost like it didn't shock me at all, really. That happened.
That makes sense from that perspective. I didn't think about it like that. Because part of what I was thinking about is that these kids, aside from sex, these kids have actually been through a lot.
Right.
So like when people are like, oh, they're like very Hallmark or very Disney, I'm like, actually, each of them had like a parent who like presumed dead, and they've been kidnapped. They've been, you know what I'm saying? Like they've actually, Carly, I mean, part of why I was glad that Joss got like teenage friends is because she had always been so much of a sounding board with Carly, like as a peer almost, that was like very uncomfortable. So for me, I'm like, nah, y'all know better. Like, this group of people know better than this. And there's like the two parts of it, right? Because there's the physical health to make sure that you're okay and I'm putting eyes on you. But it was like the flippantness that made that mini Carly shit. I was like, damn, they're gonna drag you, girl. When she was like, well, I don't care because Esme, I'm like, wait a second. Your homegirl is crying in the other room and sick. You might not know she was drugged, but you know that she's acting outside of her character. Y'all have been friends forever. And really, we have not seen y'all interact with anybody else. So y'all are always together. And you've never seen her be emotional in this way. The only time that we've seen Trina be emotional, it was with Spencer. And like, even when she was going at Taggart or Curtis over Taggart being dead, it was like, on sight, I'm cussing you out. It wasn't even tears for that. So she was acting completely outside of her character. And you thought it was because of you. You thought it was because of your relationship with this other person. And like in your mind, you was like, well, she'll just drink that shit off. Let's go get sexy. Okay, I guess. Sure.
Very bizarre. It was very bizarre. And how Cameron also, like, he had kind of like, I was like, all right, what's he gonna do? Is he in? Is he out? Because I was like, you're out with me for what you said during the drinking game. But then he was like, he told off Spencer and he was like, how can you even say that? You saw the way that Esme treated Trina. And I was like, all right, Cameron, you can stay for now. But then when they were outside, Cameron's right back to trying to humanize Esme. It's like, oh, she's so insecure. You can just tell how scared she is to lose Spencer. Fuck off. You're back out. Like, And here's the other piece is that, this is what I was talking about before about who I was anticipating being upset with. It's like, I'm so upset about these like inconsistent characterizations, or maybe they are consistent, of these like white friends, that I'm like, I barely have anything left to be mad at who I really want to be mad at, which is Esme, right? Who like came after our girl and could have killed her. But at the end of the, like, how I feel about the characters is like, you know, Esme did what we knew she would do, right? Be evil and like go after Trina and be fucking messy and manipulative. And I don't have as much heat for her as I feel like I ought to, right? I feel like I have been cheated of that because I'm so disturbed by Cameron and Jocelyn. And I think if it was intentional, I don't know, and maybe this is something to talk about as we talk about like forward facing things later, but I'm just like, if their treatment of Trina isn't something that's like explicitly something that we're supposed to pick up on, and that they're going to pick up on them being neglectful friends later on, if they don't do that, I'm going to be even more influenced. And that's yet another like missed opportunity of the storyline.
Yeah. I mean, they picked up on us being like, we don't like this third wheel and fifth wheel shit, and they were like, let's just third wheel and fifth wheel even harder. Like it was bad. And it was to the point of they don't even have any other like girlfriends. Like I feel like a lot of it has been like focused on us saying like, oh, we need a romantic pairing or partner for Trina. But even if I would go somewhere with a couple other friends. Like they don't even have enough teen scene to have that. And people keep like coming at us, like another thing that's in our mentions a lot is like, well, Sydney's in school, maybe she wasn't there. And I'm like, well, William's in school too. William is also recurring. You make things work around people's schedule, and this, we're telling you, is not working. So you did not do your job of making things work around people's schedule. And I don't think that was the case. The problem was that it was a story about her that was used to advance Joss and Cam. Because even when you think about who they screen tested with, people knew that Joss was coming in, or that Spencer was coming in as a love interest for Trina. But when Esme was coming in, they screen tested her with Eden McCoy. So like Trina, this part of Trina's story wasn't even like designed to be Trina's story. Yeah. It was designed to be in service of white characters. So I just feel like that is also something that we really don't talk about enough. And then I feel like I had one more thing, but I guess I forgot it. Because they're on so infrequently, they actually have more of a responsibility to tell better story for them. And so that has better resolution, right? Because I don't actually know what I want to see for next week, but I know that after next week, it probably means that we're not going to see the teens for a minute.
Yes.
And we don't want to be like left, like upset or like kind of hanging with that storyline for them. That's actually not good planning and writing.
Yeah, there's a difference between leaving the audience in suspense and leaving them flooded, triggered, traumatized. That's not the same as being like titillated, right? That's not the same as like, oh, I can't wait to find out what happens next. What they actually left the audience with is like, I fear what happens next because I do not trust the people behind this show to treat these characters that we care about with care and treat the audience with care.
Yeah, that's right.
Can we talk about Sprina?
Yes. I do want to say one thing, and then I want to go to Sprina, and then I want to go to hot takes. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I really wonder what the like actors group chats look like, and I really hope that this is not something that's put on Sydney's back to carry. That's all I want to say about that. I hope that like the fallout of this is not put on her back. Let's talk about Sprina.
How would it be kind of on her back?
Like, I hope that they don't expect her to like say something or like to come out and be like, I enjoyed doing this story.
Oh, yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to do that to her because it's like a typical thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's not her responsibility to do.
No.
And it's not going to stop us from critiquing the storyline. So
I mean, if Janet Jackson couldn't stop us from dragging Justin, Sydney can't stop us from dragging GH. So
right. It's bigger. It's bigger than that.
Yes. Yes. Many people were impacted by this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk Sprina.
Yeah. Woo!
Man.
Go ahead. Share.
I don't know. I kind of felt like I said, I mean, like Spencer was just like almost there. And then he basically had to apologize to everybody, just like you said. I mean, like he was hang dogged about it. And I don't Yeah.
It was very upsetting on so many different levels, both of like what we want, like the kind of choices that we want the character to make, and like the kind of growth we have seen from him, and then like the growth that we haven't seen that we really actually need for him to do, right? Like what it's been nice to see like Sprina return back to this flirty ease that we were seeing at the beginning of the week. That was really fun and exciting. They did a phenomenal job, Sydney and Nicholas. Like their chemistry is never, ever, 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 ever the issue. But that's also part of the problem, is that it felt like the writers were exploiting the chemistry between Cindy and Nicholas to like carry the rest of the story. It's like, oh, we're gonna give them a little bit of Sprina at the beginning to get them hooked, and then we're gonna do all of this that has actually like not much to do with them, and are like not any of the things that these fans actually want to see. And it's not, of course, you don't have to give us everything all at once. I consider myself to be an extremely on the spectrum of Sprina fans, on the very patient side. Especially because I'm just like, okay, this cabin trip, we'll wait. We understand there's like issues with the kids scheduling, all of that. But to like have us wait to build this up for months, and then this is what you leave us going into the weekend with, right? Like, of course, there's still more to come next week, but it felt like unfairly putting the expectations of these young actors to like perform above and beyond, and just assume that we're going to be okay with whatever happens to this couple writing wise because the chemistry is so good. That's not fair to either one of them. And I would say, to shout out Nicholas Chavez here, Nicholas Chavez, I feel like out of everyone, has to do the most stretching to make the writing make sense with his character. Like, he is very thoughtful. You can tell he puts a lot of thought and preparation into his performances. And he has to do it and say a lot of things that are annoying, inconsistent, and then also repetitive, right? Like, his character is complicated, but also convoluted a lot. And he makes a lot of small choices so that it can make sense. There's still some continuity in his character. And like, you see, like some of the things that we pointed out about his last scene at the cabin, where he's like, let's go talk on Trina, like, let's go check on Trina, like, how's she doing? And like the choices around him defending Esme, and like that, you could kind of tell that he doesn't totally believe what he's saying. I just feel like it's like, how much how many more hoops are we going to make this kid jump through? Just actually like give him something to work with here. So like, here I am, Spencer, get it together, but also leave my Nicholas Chavez alone and give him something to work with, please. Because you know he didn't like that. Anyway, I don't want to speak for him. That's me projecting.
I agree. I'm still Team Sprina, obviously, over here. I know that there's been some ruptures in the fandom. And I think that it speaks to how beloved Trina is and how protected Sydney is. That people were like, you know what? If you can't do right by our girl, you gotta pack it up. I think that what I would have loved to dig in a little bit more is, and he did as much as he could because it was in there, but like he has been extremely isolated. Like Spencer has been extremely isolated. And so if you think about it, like, so his dad, he thought he was an orphan. His dad faked his death. And then I know he knows Laura loves him. And you can tell that in the performance, but like she put him in boarding school. And so he had kind of no one except for Esme, because the way, and you said this earlier, Sandra, like they were together. We've established they've been together for like what, 2 years now? Mm-hmm. When you're that age, that's, insane. That's like
you're basically married. You're exactly. Like teenage married if you've been together multiple years when you're that young.
Right. And so it is not a simple breakup for them because of what they've been through. And for him to fake that she has been there for him the whole time. So, this is a little bit of my Spencer apologist shining through. Obviously, he has a lot to make up for with Trina. I'm hopeful that we have a Sprina scene before he goes to Spring Ridge. That is him. Like what I hope, and I mean, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but what I hope is that he like finds those pills and like puts it together what happened and goes to warn Trina before he goes to Spring Ridge. That's kind of all I'm accepting before I go off on Frank, because I'm about to drink this and I'm about to call the hotline and be like, you don't even know, Frank. That's what I plan on doing later on this week. Like later on this evening is, drink this whole bottle of Prosecco and call the GH hotline.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like with the Spencer and Esme stuff, it's like, yes, Spencer like needs to get a fucking clue. Like we've been saying this for weeks. And like, I think it's partially because I just realized basically like this morning I was like, oh, Esme reminds me of one of my exes actually. And so I think that's where some of my apologism comes from, is like, it actually, if someone has gotten in your head that deep, that they're the only one there for you, and then they see that you are in relationship, not only with Trina, but with like Joss and Cam, like that is a threat to their control over you. And so like, that's not something that you just shake off. Even if something feels really obvious to someone who's outside of that situation, it's like taking away any sense of safety, even if this person is actually extremely dangerous. And that's actually like how abuse dynamics work. Like for me, it was a different gender dynamic, but that, there are things that felt resonant, and I think probably other people have experienced as well. And so, and at the same time, he still has to be responsible for his behavior. He still has to be responsible for like the way that he's being towards Trina, which there is something kind of charming about the like, oh, he can't help himself. But I'm like, boy, you better start to help yourself. Get it together. So I am obviously still Team Sprina. I think there's also just aspects of like, I think that what they have been building is so good that it doesn't mean that I'm willing to just take anything, but I I do have grace for the artists, for Sydney and Nicholas themselves and what they've been building, that I still feel like I'm along for the ride. Yeah. And so I understand why people are upset with him. They have every right to be. Go on. Be upset with him. Yes.
How are you feeling, Tonya?
I'm still hopeful that they'll have a good, happy ending. Obviously, I mean, just disappointed with some of the writing this week, but then, you know, I would have wanted them to get together long before this anyway. So it looks like I'm just gonna have to be a little bit more patient on this. And I'm really kind of curious of what's gonna happen with Esme a little bit more. I think I don't know if this week's shenanigans are really going to help us figure her out and what her motivation is. I think it was just kind of a petty sidestep. But we're probably going to see more once Spencer goes to Spring Ridge, hopefully. And then there's still an opportunity, not understanding really what the fallout of this drugging will be. Again, not knowing if they're really going to have Trina have some real long-term effects or anything like that. But let's just say that, you know, they continue with the irresponsibility and have her just wake up in the morning and be like, hey, so y'all, what happened? You know, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but they probably will. And so maybe that means she'll try to, you know, visit Spencer and Spring Ridge. I don't know what's going to happen. I really have no idea how they're going to play this with Trina. But I'm hoping, I'm hoping this Spring Ridge will really wake him up to Esme, and he can start getting serious about what his relationship with Trina means.
Tonya, why do you have to look into my deepest fears? When you were like, if she just wakes up and she's like, everything's fine, I was like, I'm gonna lose it.
Right? But you know what? I'm not gonna be shocked if the writers do that. Like, come Monday morning and be like, wow, that was a really heavy drink, y'all. So what happened? What did I miss? I mean, I don't know, because it's just crazy that they even went there in the first place.
And this is like, writers, this is not what you should be leaving your like fans feeling, like us thinking like, what's the worst possible thing they could have you, like, y'all could do, and we're like, I don't know, they'll probably do that or worse.
Yeah.
They want to punish us. And something that you said also just reminded me, like, when you were like, but I would have actually just liked to have gotten them together a long time ago. And I was like, what a concept. Wow. Well, you mean that it can actually be soapy to have romance?
Right?
You're asking for too much.
Trauma? But
like an opportune moment for them to get together would have been when Spencer denounces his dad and Trina was like, wow, what you did was super brave, and I admire you so much. And then, oh, I thank you, and stars in the eyes, and then, you know, they kiss, and then it's just passion breaks out, and then Esme walks in and it's just like, you know, that could have happened, but no, it didn't happen.
I like this fan picture that you just did on the spot. I love it.
Right.
I could also, it's like, I could also deal with obstacles that aren't, you know, roofies, you know, like maybe my expectations are just too low. I'm just like, I would like an obstacle that's not, you know, a roofie, and then
I would love it.
Neglect. But
I mean, if they really wanted Jocelyn to have some interaction with Esme, then have Esme leave Trina and Spencer alone and really focus on Cam. That could have happened too.
I would have loved that. That's actually what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, isn't that what you had predicted or something?
This is me
clown makeup.
My clown makeup.
Right.
My clown makeup. Fucking clown.
All right, we've talked this to death. Can we let's talk about some free for all hot takes, because I don't have that many, but I do have a big one. But anyway, Tonya, do you have any hot takes from the week?
I was not happy with Brooklyn rubbing in Maxie's face the fact that she has no relationship with Bailey. I mean, obviously that was probably going to happen, but then she was just like, when Maxie was alone with Bailey and then she comes in, she's like, it's okay, I'm here. I was like, bitch, what are you doing? You know that's not your daughter, yet you're talking to her like in front of her mom. And so that's just so Brooklyn. I shouldn't have been surprised, but still I was just hot. And then to have Maxie apologize after, I'm like, no, don't apologize to her. Sorry.
Apologize to me.
Right. But then on the other hand, Maxie, it's not cool that you kissed Austin like that. Because I'm just like, you really don't have feelings for him the way you did. And the way you kissed him was just a manipulation to get him to not think about what he remembered. And so I was just like,
I don't want to see it.
Did not want to see that.
Absolutely did not
want to see that. I just want to go back to when Sonny went off on Drew. I paid attention to Hat Daddy. That made him so much more interesting to me. How he was just looking hella menacing, was like he was about to pop off. It reminded me of that same Hat Daddy that beat up the other gangster guy who I don't even
Joey Novak.
Joey Novak. That's Hat Daddy that I'm like, ooh, is he gonna come out? You know, he became so much more interesting to me in that day. And he didn't even say a word, really. But still, he just seemed like he was about to shoot Sonny himself. That was hella.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
What did you think about the Hat Daddy temp recast?
I saw a tweet when someone said new Hat Daddy's better than old Hat Daddy. And I was just like, he seemed a lot older than the other Hat Daddy. Yeah. But then
more or less triggering?
Less triggering.
Okay.
Definitely. I don't know what it is about original Hat Daddy. Original Hat Daddy triggers me like no tomorrow. But replacement Hat Daddy, he was just all right. He's all right. I have to say, I enjoy Carly versus Ava way more than Carly versus Nina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Way more. I think Carly enjoys Carly versus Ava more than Carly versus Nina. It was just like Ava and, they're just together. They're just so much more entertaining. And I just kept wanting Nina to spit it out. Just if you're going to tell Carly about Sonny being off his medicine, just say it. Don't be like, he needs you and no. Just shut up or say it or shut up and go away. Because and with Christina, Sam, are you calling me messy? And I was just like, yes, Sam, you're messy. And it's okay, but you're still messy. So that was my reaction. I was like, yes, she's calling you messy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Be okay with it. So sometimes
nobody reads you like your little sister will read you.
Right. And I'm mad disappointed that Christina was not in scenes with Sonny as I had hoped, but maybe it's coming next week. I don't know.
I believe it is next week. Yes.
Okay.
Well, why, Tonya, did you have takes on all the things that I was going to take? Like literally, no, it's good. But I don't have much else to say. I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, these like in the same order. I must have been both taking notes off of Tracey's
yes, we were
both doing that. Okay. I was like, I was transparency. I didn't have any hot take notes. So I was like, when he was talking, I was like, oh, that happened.
But what was funny, what was the final thing that I forgot about was Victor causing mess. And like his scenes with, obviously I was paying more attention to Victor than I was to Peter, because Peter was just, Peter gets the award for the worst performance ever. If I had to give an award, that was just like the worst thing ever. But what was funny to me was the glee that Victor had in sharing the news. And then he's just like, wait, you're reneging on it? Oh, hell no. But he was just enjoying. He's like, oh, you just have to give her props for just thinking about it. And oh yeah, sometimes the person that you love hurts you the most. It was just like, it was hilarious. I thought that was great too.
You didn't love Peter's Maxie.
Betrayed me. I just can't believe it.
You should be so deep.
Yes.
He was doing vocal exercises as part of.
He was doing the most with the very least.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. There's literally spit now all over my keyboard from my Peter impersonation. Peter impersonation.
I cannot believe Maxie would do that to me. Like, are you a vampire? What's going on here?
When he was staring at Bailey, that was some good acting. When you just didn't say anything, you just staring at him, just staring. I believe that more than I believed his like, oh God.
Just keep that energy, Wes. Just that look and don't open the mouth.
Right.
Acting.
You ain't got
opposite of mouth acting. It's don't open mouth acting.
Yeah.
God. Sandra.
I mean, I loved Ava's like,
yes,
the finger acting
and the ring. She's like, let me point to you, my wedding ring.
Okay, but I also was like, Ava, okay, I wouldn't brag on that too much.
Right, but
forces are coming for your marriage.
Right,
I am forced because I need it to be over. It to be over. I feel like you captured a lot of what I wanted to say. I will say about the Harmony, Alexis, Chrissy situation, like there were a lot of people who are like, that's so out of character for Chrissy. And I will say that I was expecting her to be mad about it, but I also know that she is a chaotic wild card. Mm-hmm. And so it made so much sense to me that she would actually react to Sam that way. She could have had a totally different reaction to it if Sam had brought it up differently. But because Sam just assumed she could speak for Chrissy being like, well, I don't know how I feel, but let's talk about you dating my brother. And I loved that.
Wait, and I love it. Sam was like, why? Because he's a cop?
No.
Thank you, Sam. That's actually my problem with the relationship. But thankfully, I haven't seen him really like do much cop shit lately. So, I also just want to say, damn, it's been a hard week for my couples. I guess there's not going to be any Vanna Valentine's Day because Valentine can't stop getting kidnapped by his dad. Oh, Lord. No wonder I haven't seen any Vanna spoilers. I'm like, damn, Valentine. Why are you so kidnappable? It's like you're as bad as Finn. Finn was always like needing rescue,
always.
Which just honestly was my favorite part of the Vanna relationship.
Yeah.
But honestly, I do love Valentine getting kidnapped. Like, I can't wait till Anna rescues him. It's gonna be so good. But I'm also just like, damn.
Did you see that tweet? Someone said the best part of Valentine getting kidnapped is watching him, be bored while he's kidnapped.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Forever a reaction gif.
Yeah.
Pocket.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward maybe to some of that. I wonder what kind of accommodations Victor's going to put him in. I hope it's like nice and like gothic and, very Cassadine. But that's it. That's about all I have to say. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. No surprise to anyone. I don't like Sona. I know that you are surprised, but I will say that I don't know what the fuck these writers are doing, but stuff that people find cute, I do not find cute. So like the whole situation with them, I found it to be extremely manipulative. Like when she like took him from the bar and like took him home, she named, do you want me to call this person, this person, this person? And then she only called Phyllis, who didn't answer her, stayed overnight in this man's home after he told you to leave because you were all of a sudden so concerned about his kids who were not there.
Right.
And then you still only called Brit. Like to me, it was like you are still living in this Nixon Falls fantasy. You are calling people who are good with you. Why did you not call his son Dante, who has like been decent with you? Right? Like it just to me was not cute. I see you have a reaction. Go ahead.
That was another thing I forgot about. I was like, he has all kinds of other adult children in his life. Christina, Dante. She could have called Olivia. She could have called. Go ahead.
I mean, and like the other part is like he's a grown man who has like guards. So you don't actually need to call anybody. You could have, and I get it. Like this was actually for me the first time I really saw them together and understood why people liked them. Because I'm like, oh yeah, they do have like a very sweet chemistry together. And like I've always disliked the relationship so much, I didn't really see it like that. So I understood it from the chemistry level, and maybe the writers didn't intend for it to feel manipulative, but it very much to me did. I'm like, this is you only call, like you are further isolating him, and then when you get with Carly, you won't just spit it out,
right?
Because you know what you did spit out? That if your husband came over here, I'm gonna fuck him. That's what you spit out. But you didn't spit out, girl, your husband is off his meds. So I people find that cute. I know that I'm never gonna like Sona, but that's okay. I never liked Liaison and they were on, right? Like it is what it is, but I'm just like, this was not good. And I am tired of being gaslit. It's people trying to tell me it's good. It's not. This is very fucked up. Anyway, that's what I felt about that. People were doing way too much. So like I get it. When you don't like somebody, that's how I feel about people not liking Carly. It's like when you don't like somebody, you're like, look at that bitch drinking this water over there. Fucking sipping and shit. That's how I feel how people do with Carly, which is fine, you know, because I got people like that in my life. I'm like, look at her. But sometimes, like, I'm like, y'all know that does not mean that the storyline is the way that you say it is. Like, you know what I'm saying? So when her and Ava were like fighting about Avery, people were like, fuck Carly, she's a bitch, she's still Ava's baby. I was like, y'all, Sunny has both custody and placement of Avery. This is a writing issue that I'm sure is probably going to come up with the like Sona relationship and like whatever, but that's what it is. That has not on Carly. And so like Avery being with Bobby, it will be different if like she was like, oh yeah, she went out of town with Bobby. Sure, maybe you should call Ava. Her spending the night with her grandmother is not what y'all was trying to make it be. I was like, this is, look at that bitch over there drinking that water. That's like the vibe that was.
Tracey.
And also it was about Sunny.
Bobby's not her grandmother. Here we go.
Here we go with this biological family. But yeah, like I was just like, that's not and it like reminds me like that Carly gets so much like hate that should be at Sunny. Like Sunny has placement, Sunny has custody. Clearly Ava trusts Carly so much that when she thought she was being stalked, Spencer, she like was gonna leave Avery with Carly. And Ava even was like, okay, yeah, I think that shit too far. My bad. Even Ava was like, my fault. And people was like, nah, fuck that. I'm like, y'all, this is not, yeah. But it's yeah.
Ava recognized she was just being Ava and just trying to pick at Carly, and she recognized that, and that's why I enjoyed it. I mean, she owns her shit. I enjoy it. She knows she's just picking at Carly, and Carly's reacting to her, and that's how it is. That's why it's so much more better than the Nina and her. Like, oh, I'm concerned about Sunny. No, you're not, because if you were, you would have just said it.
Exactly. And what I also really loved about the Ava and Carly scene is at the end you had Ava calling Avery.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
It was very sweet. And you also, it's just like, you remember, like, this is how Ava acts, in part because she's like a very wounded person and a very like troubled person who is like, she's very emotionally immature. So this is how she acts.
And like, Ava's my fave. Yes. I like Carly. I'm a fan of Carly, but Ava is my fave. And Ava called the police on my child. Like, it's fine to like everybody involved or to dislike people involved, but like, we got it. Like, we're not even seeing storylines clearly. It's like, look at that bitch drinking water. Which, again, I get, but eek. Oh, I also like it. Also, for me, it just like continues to remind me that they made this damn mobster who murders people like the familial heart of this show, and it continues to be ridiculous. Why does Ava not have her child? Like, why? Anyway. The Sunny and Drew scene was painful but necessary because that history rewrite they was trying to do was not it. It just wasn't it. And so as much as like it was awkward and like cringeworthy, it was really necessary because Sunny didn't tell no lies about how you felt about him.
He sure didn't. That was part of the reason why I stood up. I was like, oh, this is when you're gonna speak the truth. Okay.
And Pretty Dumb, that Brooklyn and Chase and their couple named Pretty Dumb, they earned the fuck out of that this week. My God. Here you got Chase supposed to be a detective, but you trying to tell Brooklyn that Peter doesn't know about Weezy when he all but told you that he knows about Weezy? What's going on, y'all? Pretty Dumb. Get Weezy out of there. I'm gonna go pick her up. I'm tired of this.
Please.
Get this baby out. Get this baby away from them. Because I don't even know why. Up. I don't know why Maxie's so upset. Girl, you ain't gonna do nothing but drop that baby off at Mac's house.
Right.
So Mac can raise another kid that ain't his.
That is his thing.
Don't
take his thing away from him, okay?
Whatever. And that's all I got for hot takes, to be honest. All my hot takes were about the cabinet.
Yeah.
Sandra, do you want to lead us to do some predictions?
I guess. To be honest, I haven't developed too much of a structure here. I'm sure you all will be very happy to know that on Monday, Michael surprises Willow with a trip to Paris. So what do you think? What would happen there?
They're not going to be on screen. Maybe they're taking a vacation.
Croissant.
Duel. He's on a vacation. I don't know. There's nothing. I don't know.
Croissant, bread, cheese.
That's what you want to happen? You all are being much kinder than the quote tweets. The quote tweets and the replies to that spoiler was the death pit. Everyone was like, maybe they won't come back. That was the nicer.
Au revoir.
And and then there were a lot that were like, maybe they'll die in a plane crash.
Lost. It's the crossover we've been waiting for.
So
I just have nothing. Like there's like I have no anticipation. No, oh my God, maybe they'll get married or nothing. I forgot
they weren't married. Who cares?
I'm just like, yay, they're going to Paris. Bring me a souvenir. I don't know.
I'm so glad that this is what I started off with. Okay, great. So noted. And then we also Ned and Olivia's vow renewal this week. I know you've been dying for this. And guess who are the real featured couple of this vow renewal? Who do you think would be there but Sunny and Carly?
Why?
Put me out of my misery.
Oh, that's right, Olivia. It's like, well, why are they? Olivia, she's gonna invite
Just let Sandra be together. It's clear that Sunny wants to be with Nina. The reason he's turned up so much about Carly is because he knows if he ain't with Carly for a minute, he about to go be with the boo he want to be with. Let that man go be with the boo he want to be with and free all of us. Sorry, go ahead.
Great. Any other reflections? I don't actually care. Obviously, I don't care about any of these things. I was like, what are the spoilers that are the most annoying? Let's talk about those. Okay, so let's talk about what we actually care about, which is the kids.
Wait a minute. I hope that Leo has some great lines that are hilarious.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
Yeah. Featuring our fave Quartermain, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Leo Falconeri, soon to be Quartermain.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so the kids, right? So this is going to be our conclusion to the arc that began this week that we have been talking about at length. So before Friday dropped, I want to say, or I don't know, I think Nicholas Chavez was interviewed in Soap Opera Digest last week, and he dropped a spoiler about the conversation that he's currently in with Esme in the car. He said Spencer and Esme have a ride back together that's very tense, and that Spencer begins to suspect that Esme is more dangerous than she actually is, or that he believed. And something about keep your friends close but your enemies closer. So the episode previews relating to the teens this week are Monday, Esme plays the victim. Wednesday is Spencer's going away. So it's something like Spencer's loved ones gather at Kelly's to see him off before he goes to Spring Ridge. And that same day, Ava is surprised to see Trina back at work so soon. And then Thursday is Esme wonders about Spencer.
No, like Trina.
There's no explicit Spencer and Trina. There so rarely is though. Yeah, so before this week, I mean, I had like a whole arc in my head of what I would have liked to seen. At this point, I'm very much wanting a Sprina scene to happen in that Thursday area where Esme's wondering about Spencer, because I'm assuming that means she's wondering where he is. And it feels like unlikely that Spencer would leave to go to prison without seeing Trina. But also these writers have got us so traumatized that I don't know what the fuck is gonna happen, to be honest. But I think for me, where I'm at is like, I would love another Sprina scene. I do think it's actually really necessary to close out this arc and to give us not a sense of like closure, everything's gonna be fine, but like things are that there's some bright spot, that there's something to hold on to that isn't just despair and hurt and trauma. But I actually can't do another scene of Trina reading the fuck out of Spencer. Not right now anyway. And so what that would actually require is for Spencer to have had some of these realizations about Esme before he actually sees Trina. And as Tracey has named, like, I would love it if he was going there to be like, ooh, damn, I was wrong. And be careful, please. And I'm about to go into Spring Ridge with this crazy bitch. So I do wonder if that is like the beginning of the week is Spencer like coming to this realization about Esme And then the second part is him kind of negotiating, okay, so what am I going to do? I'm about to be locked up with her. I would like for him to have the realization before he's there, or at least obviously, we don't even truly know how dangerous Esme is. But at least to have some sense of like, I've really, really gotten to bed literally with the wrong person.
Yikes. Literally.
I would literally like him to be in the car with Esme and being like, you know what you just said to me was bullshit. I'm getting out and I'm going back to the cabin. I'm going to make sure that Trina's okay. And then he goes into the cabin, knocks on the door, bangs the door down, and she's asleep. And he stays with her all night until she wakes up. And then yells at Cameron and Jocelyn was like, what the F were you guys doing? Did you not care about Sprina or Trina? And all this stuff. And then Trina is just like, oh my God, I love you. I'm going to take care of you while you're in Spring Ridge. I'm going to bring you food. I'm going to do this. And your job's going to be waiting for you. And it's just going to be so great. That's my fan fiction.
Beautiful.
It was on the spot fan fiction, and I'm into it.
Thanks.
I support it. Mm-hmm. What about you, Tracey?
I don't know.
You're so dejected. You're just like, I'm just done.
You're like, I don't even know if I want next week to happen.
Get this
that's
together.
That's the only way they could fix this is if Spencer turns the car around, is like, I'm going back to make sure that Trina's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to me because I've already talked about this. I don't like getting embarrassed in public. And so the humiliation of Trina has really been a lot for me. Yes. You know, like I'm a person who like, you know, usually to prepare for the show, I rewatch episodes a few times, or like scenes a few times or whatever. And I have not rewatched any of this week because it's all been very cringed for me. And so the public embarrassment of Trina has just been really hard. So I need somebody to know she was drugged, that she wasn't just like emotional over some feelings for Cam or some bullshit. Like, so I would love her, like I said, for Spencer to know she was drugged. Go to the party and be like, I'm gonna go see, you know, sneak out, go see Trina, tell her that Esme is dangerous, and then have some sort of moment at the gallery.
Yes, I need that. I need also like him to have warned someone outside that Esme is dangerous. I'm like, this woman's staying at your grandmother's house. And I mean, Laura can handle herself, but someone needs a heads up.
I don't see how Esme can continue to stay. Like, I'm surprised Laura wouldn't be like, okay, so Spencer's gone. So what are your plans? That would be a hilarious scene.
I would love if that happens at Spencer's party.
Right.
I do wonder, like so much of them putting up with Esme too is like to keep tabs on Spencer, like pushing her out also means potentially pushing him out, which is something that Joss has not calculated.
Even though Trina told her?
Even though Trina actually did tell her months ago, like, we actually shouldn't go full force on Esme because it's gonna push Spencer away and put him even further in her thrall. But you know, Joss is gonna do what she's gonna do, I guess. Damn, sorry, Joss, but also apologize to me. I just feel owed a lot of apologies apparently this week. But yeah, I had said I didn't want a Joss and Trina rupture, but now it's like I require it. I actually require that they like fight this out, and that like Joss see that her behavior is not supportive actually. And it's like, it was undermining, it was neglectful. And it doesn't mean that I don't want them to be friends anymore, but it's like actually for them to be the kind of friends that I know they can be, or that they have purported to be in the past. I need that, but I don't know if I'm gonna get that.
Good luck with that. I doubt that that's what you get.
I know. Normally I'm like, let's just hope for the best, but you made me wear too much clown makeup this week, GH.
Yep. So that's what we got this week. Tonya, you're going to be gone next week. But we are very excited to lovingly celebrate your birthday from afar. We're going to have a special guest next week. We'll announce it during the week.
Woo, I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, but you know, it's been a week.
It has.
We'll see y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.